Thank you, Andrea Cogliolo. It has been perfectly on time. Now, before opening the floor for discussion, we would like to have another presentation that is done by two people, by two very well-known personalities. One is Umberto Damato, and the other one is, of course, our host. They are going to speak about how to contractualize ship efficiency and emission compliance. Umberto, the floor is yours, and then Francesco will follow afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Once again, welcome to Napoli in this wonderful venue. First of all, I wish to introduce myself. I'm naval architect by education and in the shipping business since the age of 15 when I first joined vessel as a seaman. So I'll try to speak from the technical point of view, I hope not boring technical. Okay, this slide shows a wonderful hull coated with silicon-based paint. It's one of the energy-saving systems which are used nowadays to reduce fuel consumption to make the hull so smooth that the friction is reduced. But then I made an analysis on the existing vessels, which I called old-fashioned, but belongs to that category that Ugo Salerno said before, ships built till the year 2011. I call them old-fashioned because they are with an ordinary type engine with no kind of energy-saving device, like few that I will show you later. You see in the blue column the figures that show the daily consumption in metric tons of heavy fuel oil 380 centistokes. The so-called eco-type vessel offered nowadays in this moment on the market for charter, they offer a much lower consumption, which for, in this case, a 36,000 tons deadweight bulk carrier is a reduction of about 15% of fuel per day. But let's keep in mind that the word eco has got a different meaning. Eco stands for economical, electronic controlled engines, ecos for ecological, environment friendly. So there are many features which can be added also as a retrofit to a vessel to improve her efficiency. Let's go on with the Panamax bulk carriers. Again, by comparing the blue figures with the yellow figures, the reduction of fuel consumption is again in the region of 15%. Kamsarmax bulk carriers, by their design, since they are a bit longer than Panamax, they have a better fuel consumption. So with eco-type vessels, the saving which can be achieved is in the region of 10%, slightly less than other kind of vessels. MR tankers, medium range, 50,000 tons deadweight tankers, also can reach a saving of 15% about. But again, I'm talking of ships actually on the market. New type of vessels still to be delivered, which must be regarded as prototypes. They promise even higher savings, so lower consumptions. In this slide, we see the price of bunker starting in the last few years, more or less mid-2011 up to today. We've seen an incredible increase in the year 2012, coming down actually to roughly 600 US dollars per metric ton. But again, it's so volatile, so unpredictable, going up and down every day. And then we must also remember that we need to have on board of a ship nowadays 4 different kinds of fuels. One is the heavy fuel 380 stocks with a high sulfur content. High sulfur means up to 3.5%. Then when entering ECA areas, emission control areas, a vessel must switch to low sulfur fuel oil. Then import using marine diesel oil, but entering in European ports, the switch is to ultra low sulfur gas oil, whose content of sulfur is 0.1%. And each one of these bunkers has got a much different price. We have seen in the last few years, again, improvements in technology for new buildings, but some of them can also be used as a retrofit. We've seen, first of all, new hull forms. Already mentioned the electronic type engines. The interaction between the hull and the propeller has been highly improved thanks to proper model basing test of the ship model, which is self-propelled. It's something which is not usually done. Usually, a ship is designed, the hull is tested in a model basing tank under towage, and then the result of this towage are passed through the propeller designer, who is optimizing a stock propeller to that hull. But very few yards, only in Japan, I know, they make proper test of a self-propeller model. The design of the propellers has been also improved. There have been a number of appendices installed to the hull which improve the flow, the stream, and so again give a better efficiency. Last not least, scrubbers. Scrubber must be regarded not so much as an energy-saving device, but a device which allows the use of one single fuel all over the world. Let's say the cheapest, in brackets, 380 centistoks high sulfur can be used in ECA areas and in ports, provided the ship is fitted with a very expensive and very delicate scrubber. Then, what happens in any new building contract? A shipyard is guaranteed the main engine consumption, which is measured at shop trials in terms of grams per kilowatt per hour. Checking this consumption is done during a very short time, 6 to 8 hours maximum, and the engine is using diesel oil. Then, of course, any calculation is done to predict the consumption when the vessel will be at sea using heavy fuel. As well, the yard is giving a guarantee for a ship speed at sea trials only. That means the vessel is in light ballast, is just staying few hours for making these reciprocate courses 3 times, and then the average is done to measure the ship speed. And there are, of course, penalties in case the vessel is not performing this contractual speed. It can even be reached a refusal in case the ship drops below, let's say, 1 knot or a certain percentage of the speed which is stated in the contract, then the buyer has even the right to refuse the vessel. Then, what can be done to guarantee that the vessel is keeping her performances when she is in service at full draft and using heavy fuel oil, and also during the time, not only at the moment of sea trials and during the 1-year guarantee period, but later on. So, my answers, which then will be also supported by the opinion of the lawyer, Francesco, S.Lauro, will tell something, what can be done? From my technical point of view, I see the possibility of including in a shipbuilding contract the verification of the model basing test, self-propelled. Those tests must be validated and confirmed by class. Then, buyer has also to add a refusal clause, as earlier done for ship speed in sea trials and engine consumption at shop trials. In case of failure of SAD test or SAD model test, again, talking about a prototype of a new kind of ship with new hull, new propeller, new devices, the buyer must have the possibility of saying something on this prototype model. This slide shows some of the even strange things which are used nowadays to improve the propeller efficiency. Those fins or ducts which are fitted to the propeller or next to it, or okay, there are so many which each one of them gives some guarantee, but just on paper. Then we have to verify what happens when it is used on board of the vessel. So again, it could be also introduced in the shipping contract, the check of the ship's consumption at various speed, not only at one single speed, but also to speed which are lower than the contract speed. And then, okay, this is a dream, as Mr. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. I have a dream to check again the ship's performances at the first laden voyage. Of course, this should be done by having on board some sophisticated equipment, which anyway is not so difficult to install. The same equipment installed at sea trials, like torque meters or differential GPS, can be installed and recheck the ship performances later on at the first laden voyage. Thank you for your attention. I leave the floor to Francesco Lauro.
No, it's not Francesco. It's the same paper. Sorry, I'm not Salvatore Lauro, as you can see, but since there is also Salvatore intervention, gentlemen here. No, the idea to have a two voices sort of little speech is because we have got a ship owner who is also a very good naval architect, and we have a very bad lawyer who is not a ship owner. So I think we could have given a full scope to this question, how to contractualize efficiency and compliance with the emissions problems. Actually, I had the idea to put as a first session of this conference. The second session, I would like to say hello to Mr. Castagna, who has been for so many years the managing director of one of the most important Italian and Naples bank, and he's back with us. So we have technical solutions which are also business, commercial solutions, because eco-ships means also money. And we have got financial solution, after the credit crunch problem, and anyway the problem that shipping is still experiencing, to get money to develop these very important projects, which are also technical projects, and which need money. So, but I had the idea of this new session in the morning. In the afternoon we will have the usual very interesting with many important speakers, managing the risks session with the catastrophe risks, and the very usual bread and butter session, build, buy, and the charter with all the maritime lawyer and the ship owner discussing perhaps new decisions. Is that I work a lot with, I have the honor and sometimes the burden to work with Manuel a lot. And since he runs more than 100 ships that he operates himself, I think he awakened me on the perception on how important the consumption problems, because he runs his own ships on his own lines. So, I mean, somebody like Mats obviously also has this perception, but is a sort of indirect perception, because generally you charter your vessel. So it's very interesting to have these two voices of an owner who operates is hundreds of ships, and an owner who charters is hundreds of ships from two different parts of the world. But going back to my homework, I am supposed to furnish sensible solution in order to reply to a question which is very popular this day. I've got a Greek friend who is a Greek ship owner who accused me, having just ordered an eco vessel, to cost him 5 million more than if he would have chosen sort of a traditional vessel which would sell very cheap on this market. And Yanis said that because of my suggestion, he is spending 5 million more. I mean, so I think we as lawyers should also address and help the owners to make sure that then this vessel, if something wrong happens, really perform. Obviously, the president of Fincantieri is on that train, and he will tell us that the best way is choosing a very good and reliable shipyard, which I'm sure it is. But in case this is not possible or perhaps too expensive, we should still have some sort of remedies. I don't think the remedies are so great, but let's look a little bit into them. Make these new generation vessels. The same, I think, is for performance, for consumption, speed, emission. Obviously, if we have on this type of contracts self-propelled model tests, we could have some useful information before the problem becomes too big. Obviously, this would imply also revising the terms of payment, the usual structure that, you know, for instance, in China was 25 installments of 20, now is less at the advance, for the advance, but still a substantial amount of money should be also revised, because obviously if you sign the contract based, conditioning it to the passing of the model tests, is logical that the signing installments, the first one, is very small. It should just compensate the shipyard of the cost of the design and of the research which is behind the design. So I think a good way would be that the usual first installment is paid at the passing of the tests. I think if we deal with tests, with small toys, and also the customary tolerance of the shipbuilding contract should be reduced to the strict instrumental measurements precision tolerance. You know, we want to have very reliable information, and we should keep the element of tolerance a bit out from model testing. If installments have already been paid, refund guarantees should be sensibly in place. And we could, but probably the shipyards will not agree on this. It's a pity that Ambassador Petrone, the president of Fincantieri, hasn't arrived yet. But the parties can agree perhaps on lump sum liquidated damages. Liquidated damages are also generally are good for the shipyard, because generally the damage is much more. We have been able sometime to exceptionally, by speaking very much, to keep liquidated damages out of the contract. And when we had a serious problem, we had a very strong contract, because generally liquidated damages are limiting too much the liability. And this is something that we will see in one of the next slides. So if the tests are successful, I still refer to the model tests and not to the sea trials yet, I think there must be a provision that clearly states that this is not a sort of approval of the design that shifted the responsibility of the design on the ship owner, on the buyer, as it would have been the buyer's design. This is still, if it's produced by the shipyard or by, more often, sometimes is subcontractors, this is still a shipyard design. All other terms and conditions of the contract could be as usual. What happens if tests are unsuccessful? I think there are two possible solutions. One is rescindment. You can sell the contract. As we said, there might be a liquidated damages lump sum provision, perhaps. The other way is to renegotiate the contract, either taking more time for the sign or reducing the price. If the owner is and the shipyard are still interested in the project, there may be some sort of tables with automatic adjustments, but I mean, probably I'm not the most qualified person to speak about this. It's quite technical and commercial as well. Another remark. Obviously, we can speak hours, and we have I'm filling some gaps, so I'll take a little bit more time, but I don't want to take too much. Inadequacy, the present customary contractual provision about free tolerance in respect of performance. We are speaking here, first of all, about consumption, and the liquidated damages are not good for these eco-vessels. From Umberto's slides, we could see, I thought it was even more than that, but I think Umberto has recorded also the description of the new generation vessels on the market.
Just those figures I've shown are just referred to ships in this moment on the market. That means there are still so many ships under construction which promise even better performances.
Okay.
So we can gain maybe up to 20,
Francesco,
even 25%.
just to be clear, Umberto was mentioning a certain type of vessels, bulkers and tankers. But if you go on container ships or on ro-ro vessels, the savings are completely different in terms of magnitude, because you can go to 50%. Yeah.
So I was just asked Umberto, but Ugo said 50%, because by working aside manual, I had an idea of very high perception. But let's discuss in respect of bulkers and tankers. We have a range of 15% that may be increased perhaps in the future. And let's work on this. If we keep the old contractual customary allowance and liquidated damages, I think 5% goes for free tolerance, and 5% goes for liquidated damages. I've never seen liquidated damages of more than 100, 200, 300 for each percent point. Generally, you speak about 10,000 a gram of extra consumption. So if we take a Panamax vessel with this figure, during the life, 20 years life of a Panamax, the saving would amount to approximately 20 million. If we lose 2/3 of this saving, it would be about 13, 14 million. What can we do? 2/3 is 10%. Vessel underperforming 9-10% and getting 200, 300, 500, 1 million liquidated damages. This does not make a sense. So I think one of the aspects I think that an owner should discuss with the shipyard, liquidated damage cannot be a way just to escape liability. Especially if I pay 5 million more for a vessel, right? Another very interesting point, what are the remedies? As I said at the outset, I think they are probably too obvious. I spoke to Simon Curtis, who wrote the book on their English law. He's a usually attending our conference. This year is a year of leave, and obviously this is valid also for our, spoke yesterday to Professor Francesco Berlingieri, who had some familiar problems. We hope to have him back next year, and Mr. Paolo D'Amico went that over to Manuel this year, but we hope him to have back. Simon, I thought he had some very original solutions, but I found that this was not true. So there are not many. Perhaps some of you could make some proposals. Perhaps the owners or the other lawyers or the architects, the technicians can make these proposals. Tolerance should be deducted, and for me also liquidated damages are a form of hidden tolerance. Liquidated damage therefore should be increased, and perhaps the rescission, because generally the contract are usually, if you rescind, there would be just sort of no cure, no pay, and of the contract. Perhaps this should not be allowed, but this is a contractual matter that should be kept in our mind during the negotiation, and I would like very much to hear the panel and the floor comments on this. Let's think a little bit of also the builder. The builder finds himself in a difficult position because, as Umberto and also Ugo outlined, the saving of a vessel is the result of many factors, not only the engine, the design of the hull, maybe many factors, including propellers, rudders, the coating. We have seen dramatical improvement in the Ro-Ro vessels with silicone coatings. So, I mean, the shipyard is really, we are not speaking so much about retrofits, but it's indeed in a difficult position. So the builder should make sure that the cause of the problem could be found, and that the contract with subcontractors are sort of back-to-back contracts with, in respect of the general contract he has got with the buyer. And obviously the subcontractors have in mind designers. They must be solvent subjects. Sometimes there are some very good designers, but they are a small office. So as lawyers, they should insure themselves in order to be able to also to cope to an unsuccessful case, touching wood, obviously. As I say, this may increase the cost. Perhaps this is not good news, something that the owners would like to hear, but is a consequence. The guarantee, the last point that I think Umberto developed, is how to make sure that everything is working well on the laden vessel, and again during a period of time. There might be a sort of inherent vice that assures at the sea trials a good performance, and then during the time these steps, the materials, they may decay, they may change in the time. Obviously, today is a good time, since the recovery of the freight market is still at the very beginning. Let's hope it will continue. So it's a good time for the owners to negotiate with the shipyard, but I don't think there is the culture of having extra longer guarantees than the normal 1 year. And as we know, the guarantee only protects is a promise of remedying the defect. It generally doesn't cover we have been able to obtain them sometime, but in a hidden manner. But generally doesn't cover the loss of profit and all the damage. It's just an obligation to repair. We may disagree with this and say that perhaps there is an in-tort action in a certain legal system, but this is still a matter to be settled. Therefore, I think we should also be here to choose the good yard that could really perform, but also the yard like a very good car that provides you for a wider and a bigger guarantee. A lot of the problem would be if the problem cannot be remedied, what happens? Apart from the fact that many vessels are built in Far East, and so there is the usual problem that there is another subject generally to make the change and the repairs. I think there are a lot of questions that is difficult, in particular for me, to answer because some of them are quite new. Obviously, the adequate liquidated damages provision, perhaps in the future, could be agreed, if not liability for the full extent of the damage. And if we have this, obviously, we should have in place, is prudent to have in place adequate performance guarantees. So I will not have, as a ship owner, the refund guarantee of the money I paid in my hands, but I will have a performance guarantee in respect of a breach to the contract or underperformance under the contract, because I cannot redeliver to the builder the vessel. So I took a little bit more of time since to fill this gap, but I think I also had the opportunity to put many questions to the speakers and to this very distinguished panel that will like to speak. Unless you don't prefer to have the coffee break now, you like to go on? Yes, yes, yes. I would recommend so. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always difficult to interrupt the host, and so we were extremely patient. Absolutely. Just a small comment.
But you told me to make it longer, no? No,
absolutely not.
I misunderstood. Oh, wow, what a pity.
What a pity. But you understood that.
Next time you should speak me louder.
No problem. Just a clarification, a small comment. When we speak about consumption, of course, if we speak of reduction of consumption in absolute terms, which means the same ship, but with the new technology, of course, savings of 20% are a very high amount. But what is important is the consumption per ton-mile of cargo transported. That is really affecting the result, the impact on environment, but also the financial result of the owner. In this case, we can speak about 50% reduction. If we speak about absolute terms, of course, a 20% reduction is achievable, but is a very high rate. So you have to think also to the vessels in a different way, just to be clear, because otherwise we give some wrong impression of the potential of technology